I was mid-presentation to investors when my wife's brother walked in and said, "We're going with my concept instead." The room applauded. I closed my laptop, smiled, and said, "Enjoy the funding." 48 hours later, the CFO was begging at my door, and their faces went pale when they realized I'd already taken everything with me. You ever have one of those days where you wake up thinking, yeah, today's the day everything finally clicks, and by noon, you're wondering if you're secretly living in a sitcom written by your worst enemy? That was me. Tuesday morning, caffeinated to the point of prophecy, wearing my one good suit, ready to pitch 3 years of blood, sweat, and PowerPoint slides to a room full of investors who smelled like old money and condescension. I practiced my presentation so many times that even my coffee maker could probably explain the stabilization algorithm. I walked into that glass-walled boardroom feeling like a man about to drop the mic. Instead, I got drop-kicked by karma and loafers named Trent. Trent, my wife Amber's younger brother, was the kind of guy who'd walk into a funeral wearing sunglasses and call it networking. He had that frat boy confidence that came from never facing consequences and a jawline that screamed, "My dad owns the company," which technically he did. Richard, my father-in-law, CEO of Brightline Tech and walking embodiment of the Old Boys Club, had built the company from the ground up, only to let his golden boy son run it into the ground at a much higher altitude. Anyway, there I was, clicking through my slides, explaining how our new system could stabilize wireless transmission, even in fluctuating environments, when the door swung open like a courtroom drama entrance. Trent strolled in, all swagger and hair gel, holding a latte and zero shame. "Sorry to interrupt, Mason," he said, voice dripping with entitlement. "We've decided to go with my concept instead." Now, when someone says something like that mid-presentation, your brain goes through stages. First is confusion, like maybe you misheard. Then comes anger, followed closely by that delightful cocktail of humiliation and disbelief that makes you wish the floor had a trapdoor. I stood there frozen for a second, staring at him, then at the investors who were nodding like trained seals at SeaWorld. One of them, a guy with a Rolex that probably had its own zip code, even smiled and clapped. "Brilliant pivot, Trent," he said. Pivot my ass. That man had just hijacked 3 years of my work with the finesse of a raccoon stealing fries. Amber was there too, sitting near the end of the table, smiling, proud, supportive, but not of me. No, she was beaming at her brother, her eyes glistening like she'd just watched a rom-com ending. That hurt worse than the betrayal itself. She didn't even look guilty, just relieved. Like someone who'd finally taken the training wheels off her family's favorite pet project. Me. I closed my laptop slowly, the sound echoing in that sterile boardroom like a mic dropped from hell. Everyone waited for me to blow up or make a scene, but I didn't give them the satisfaction. I forced a smile that felt like it might crack my face in half and said, "Enjoy the funding." Then I walked out, calm, cool, and dying inside. I could practically hear Trent whisper to someone, "Guess he's finally done." "Yeah, pal, but not in the way you think." The elevator ride down felt like descending into my own personal reboot episode. My reflection in the mirrored walls looked too calm for what I was feeling. Betrayed, embarrassed, furious. Pick one. I'd spent 3 years giving the company everything, from sleepless nights to missed anniversaries. And for what? To be replaced mid-sentence by a guy whose last big idea was to add emojis to the dashboard for user engagement. When I stepped out into the parking lot, the sun was bright and smug, like it was in on the joke. I sat in my car for a full minute, just gripping the steering wheel, wondering when exactly I'd become the disposable version of myself. People always talk about betrayal like it's a stab in the back. But honestly, it's more like being pickpocketed. You don't notice what's missing until you reach for it. Your dignity, your respect, your wife's loyalty, and realize someone else walked off with it while you were too busy being polite. I drove home on autopilot, my brain replaying the scene over and over, rewriting it in ways where I had the perfect comeback. "Oh, you're going with Trent's concept. Great. Does it come with a free crash and burn guarantee?" Too late now. By the time I parked in front of our house, I'd already made peace with one fact. I wasn't just done with Brightline Tech. I was done being the family's punching bag. Amber was in the kitchen when I walked in on the phone, probably bragging about her brother's genius. When she saw me, her face froze for a split second. Surprise, maybe guilt, but then she smiled like nothing was wrong. "Hey babe, you left early." "Yeah," I said, grabbing a beer from the fridge. Got replaced mid-sentence. "Saves time." "Really?" Her smile faltered. "Oh, come on. Don't be dramatic. It's just business, right?" I said, taking a long sip. Just business. The family kind. She sighed the way people do when they're trying to sound patient. But really mean you're embarrassing me in my own kitchen? Mason, you're overreacting? Trent's concept just aligned better with the investor's direction. Trent's concept? I repeated. You mean my project with his name stapled on it? She crossed her arms. This attitude is exactly why Dad worries about you. You take things too personally. I laughed. Actually laughed. Yeah. Well, getting robbed in broad daylight tends to feel a little personal, Amber. She rolled her eyes and turned back to her phone. You'll thank us later. This could be good for the company. There it was. Us. Not me. Not even him. Us. The family unit that apparently had a secret membership card I never got. I looked at her. This woman I'd married thinking we were partners, and realized she wasn't even on my side of the chessboard anymore. I was just the expendable pawn who thought love could outrank bloodline. I finished my beer, tossed the bottle in the sink, and said, You know what? You're right. Thank you. You just saved me 3 more years of wasting my life. She frowned. Mason, don't be rash. But I was already walking out of the kitchen. Not storming. Not slamming doors. Just walking. The quiet kind of anger that doesn't make noise because it's too focused. I went straight to the study, pulled open the bottom drawer, and stared at the files I'd kept. Notes, test logs, backup drives, all of it. My work. My real work. I smiled to myself. They could have the fake presentation, the investors' applause, and the empty headlines. I had the real formula, and that meant they'd come crawling back eventually. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Trent's smug face, Amber's approving smile, Richard's calculating stare. The whole performance played on loop like a bad commercial. Around 3 a.m., I got up, made a pot of coffee strong enough to remove paint, and opened my laptop. I started a new document titled Project Iron Core, Independent Version. The cursor blinked like it was daring me to start over. So, I did. By sunrise, I'd outlined my next move. I wasn't going to rant online, sue anyone, or make a scene. That's what amateurs do. No, I was going to do what I did best. Build something better. Something they couldn't steal because they wouldn't understand it. Revenge wasn't about screaming louder. It was about smiling quieter. So, yeah. That Tuesday started as the day I got replaced mid-sentence. But by Thursday, I'd already started writing the next chapter, one where the punchline was mine. And if Karma was listening, I was ready to make her proud. They say hindsight is 20/20, but in my case, it's more like 4K Ultra HD with surround sound and director's commentary. Looking back, the moment I accepted a family offer from Amber's dad, I basically handed him a leash and said, Pull whenever you want, sir. I didn't see it then, of course. Back then, I thought I was stepping into opportunity. Joining Brightline Tech sounded classy, like one of those sleek Silicon Valley companies where people ride scooters and pretend kombucha is a personality. Spoiler alert, it was less innovative startup and more family cult with quarterly reports. I'd worked my way up the hard way. My first job was fixing printers at a call center that smelled like burnt coffee and regret. Then I freelanced for a few tech firms, grinding out code while eating ramen that came in more flavors than dignity. So, when Richard, my soon-to-be father-in-law, pulled me aside during our engagement dinner and said, Mason, I could use a sharp mind like yours at Brightline, I thought I'd just been knighted. The man wore tailored suits, had a voice that could sell ice to Antarctica, and reeked of cigar money and generational arrogance. We're all family here, he said. That should have been the red flag. In corporate language, we're all family here translates to, we don't pay you enough to complain. So there I was, Mason, the loyal husband, engineer, bright-eyed and stupid enough to believe nepotism could work in my favor. I joined Brightline with dreams of respect, collaboration, maybe even a corner office one day. Instead, I got fluorescent lighting, lukewarm coffee, and a front-row seat to Trent's mediocrity on parade. He was the ideas guy. Every company has one. The guy who walks into meetings uninvited, throws out buzzwords like synergy and scalability, and then disappears right before the work starts. And guess who had to make those ideas actually work? Yeah, yours truly. At first, I didn't mind. I told myself it was just part of earning trust, proving my worth the usual self-delusion people use before they realize they're being exploited. Every week, Richard would give one of his motivational speeches to the team. We're not just a company, we're a legacy. While I was in the back, mentally calculating how much caffeine it would take to survive the next sprint, the day I realized I was just free labor in a family-run circus, Started like any other Monday. Too early, too caffeinated, and too optimistic for what was about to hit me. I was halfway through debugging a module when Trent strolled into my office wearing designer sneakers and the confidence of a man who's never been told no. Bro, he said, dragging out the word like it was a threat. Dad wants to see the prototype. Which one? I asked, not looking up. The one you've been working on? He said, You know, my project? I looked up then. Your project? He grinned. That perfectly punchable grin. Yeah, man. The stabilization module. The investors love it. I'm presenting it next week. For a moment, I thought he was joking. But Trent didn't joke about stealing credit. He did it as naturally as breathing. You do realize, I said slowly, that I wrote the entire code from scratch, right? He waved his hand like I was interrupting his vibe. We're family, Mason. What's yours is ours. If homicide were legal in small doses, I'd have qualified for parole by lunch. Still, I bit my tongue, mostly because Amber had been pushing the whole "it's just temporary" line. She said her dad respected my work, that he saw me as a future partner in the company. Partner, right? I was the unpaid intern with better grammar. Her dad, Richard, was another piece of work. Imagine the Monopoly man, with a trust fund and a god complex. Every morning, he'd walk through the office with his trademark smile, that kind of smug calm people get when they've never had to reheat leftovers. He'd stop by my desk, sometimes, pat my shoulder, and say things like, Mason, we're counting on you to keep us innovative. Translation: do all the work while I take the credit at the shareholder dinner. And don't even get me started on the company culture. Brightline was less like a team and more like a reality show. Trent's girlfriend Lexi ran social media. His cousin Greg was head of HR, despite thinking HR stood for hot receptionists. Even Amber worked there, technically in marketing, though her main role seemed to be defending Trent from accountability. I swear nepotism in that office had its own employee ID. Every time I tried to raise concerns, Richard would say, You're overthinking it, Mason. We're all family. I'd nod like an idiot while imagining a future where I invented a time machine just to slap my past self for believing him. Then came the week before the big betrayal, the one that kicked off my villain origin story. We had a major presentation scheduled, a pitch to land investors for a product that could literally change the wireless industry. I've been perfecting the design for months, running simulations until my laptop sounded like it was training for a marathon. I submitted everything on the internal server, thinking my name would, actually stay on it. Guess what? The following Monday, a new version appeared. Same work, same format, but now the header said Concept Lead, Trent Collins. The lights hummed overhead, and the whiteboard was covered in my notes, equations, formulas, outlines. In the quiet, I finally said it out loud. I'm the free labor. It was both depressing and liberating, like realizing your favorite restaurant has been giving you food poisoning for years. I packed up that night with one promise to myself: never again. The next time I walked into that building, I wouldn't be their pawn. I'd be the guy holding the whole board, and if that meant smiling through fake meetings, playing along with Richard's We're All Family act, and letting Trent think he was the genius, fine. Let them dig their own hole. I'd be the one selling the shovels. So yeah, I didn't get here by luck. I got here by caffeine, unpaid overtime, and the sheer stupidity of believing family meant fairness. Brightline Tech wasn't just a company. It was a perfectly air-conditioned trap. But by the time I realized I'd walked into it, I was already planning my way out. Because if there's one thing I learned working for the Collins clan, it's that family might screw you over faster than a stranger, but they never see it coming when you screw back harder. You ever wake up the morning after a disaster and convince yourself it was all a dream? Yeah, that was me on Wednesday for about 8 seconds. Then I saw the half-packed boxes in my living room, remembered Trent's smirk, Amber's "it's just business" speech, and boom, back to reality. Population: one idiot husband who got professionally pickpocketed. I brewed my coffee like it owed me child support. Triple shot, no mercy, and stared at my reflection in the microwave door. There it was, the face of a man who'd spent years saving a company that couldn't even save him a seat. My phone buzzed. I ignored it. Probably Amber texting something tone-deaf like, "You'll find something new. Proud of you for being mature." Mature? Yeah, because silence is maturity when rage could file a police report. By 8:30, I decided to go back to the office. Not for closure, not for revenge. At least that's what I told myself. I just wanted to collect my things before someone accidentally repurposed my desk into a shrine for Trent's greatness. I drove there on complete autopilot, windows down, the kind of morning sun that dares you to feel hopeful. My car stereo played some old rock track, and for a moment I almost convinced myself this was a new chapter. Maybe I'd start a consulting firm, maybe even teach. Then I pulled into the parking lot and saw the big bright line logo shining like it was mocking me. My stomach dropped like it had seen the bill at a steakhouse. The lobby looked the same. Modern, sterile, pretentious. Glass walls everywhere, like the building was proud of having no secrets, except the big one they just pulled on me. Leia, the receptionist, spotted me immediately. Her eyes widened like she'd just seen a ghost haunting its own workplace. "Mr. Mason?" she whispered. "You okay?" "Fantastic," I said. "Just cleaning up the crime scene." Her lips twitched. "If you need me to fake a fire drill while you sneak out, I can." "Appreciate it," I said, giving her a small smile. "But I think the place will burn on its own soon enough." I walked down the hall to my office correction, Trent's new innovation workspace. According to the sign on the door, he'd actually renamed it. The audacity was Olympic level. Inside, it looked like someone had tried to stage a tech bro habitat. My plants were gone, replaced with a neon hustle hard sign. My ergonomic chair had been swapped for some Instagram-friendly beanbag that screamed unemployed in 6 months. I ignored the decor and went straight for my desk. Most of my stuff was still there. My notebooks, flash drives, a mug that said world's okayest employee. Irony hits different now. I started packing quietly, but I could feel eyes on me. People walking by would slow down, pretending to check emails, while sneaking pity glances. The rumor mill must have been working overtime. In corporate culture, watching someone fall from grace is better than Netflix. Then came the cherry on top. My so-called manager, Jeff, a guy who built his career entirely on forwarding my emails and calling it delegation, strolled in like he owned the place. "Hey, Mason," he said, too cheerful. "Didn't expect to see you." "Yeah," I said. "I wanted to leave before you changed the Wi-Fi password." He chuckled, missing the sarcasm entirely. "Listen, man. No hard feelings, right? Trent just connected better with the investors." "Of course," I said, closing a box. "They always love the guy with good hair and bad math." He frowned, clearly not sure if I was joking. Spoiler. I wasn't. Before he could reply, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, mumbled something about a follow-up meeting, and bolted like a man allergic to confrontation. Typical Jeff. Emotionally ghosting mid-sentence since 2016. I sat down for a moment just to breathe, surrounded by the echoes of a job that used to mean something. Every scribble on the whiteboard, every sticky note, every dent in the desk, it was all me. Every sleepless night I spent making sure Trent didn't crash the project now looked like evidence in my own betrayal. My phone buzzed again. Amber. I sighed and looked. Her text said, "Trent's presentation killed." Everyone loved it. My thumbs hovered over the screen for a second before typing, "I bet." Then I tossed the phone onto the table like it was contaminated. The bitterness hit hard, the kind that makes your coffee taste like regret. I knew I had to leave before I said something unprintable to someone who didn't deserve the courtesy of hearing it. So, I took one last look at the office, the desk that had seen more of my life than my own living room, and placed my company badge on top. I left it there like a calling card at a funeral. On my way out, Zara from research spotted me by the elevator. She was one of the few sane people in that building. "You're leaving?" she asked softly. "Seems that way." Her expression tightened. "You didn't deserve this, you know." "Yeah," I said, pressing the elevator button. "But life's not an HR department." She laughed, then frowned. For what it's worth, Trent's demo was rough. That got my attention. "Rough? More like a tech apocalypse," she whispered. He was sweating through his shirt by the second slide. Half the code crashed on launch. You could smell the panic from the hallway. I smirked. "Good. Hope the crash report sends him a thank you note." The elevator dinged, doors sliding open like the universe was cueing my exit. "If he asks for help," Zara said, lowering her voice. "What do I tell him?" I grinned. "Tell him to Google humility." The doors closed, and I couldn't stop smiling. For the first time that week, I felt something other than fury. I felt vindicated because no matter how much they'd taken from me, they couldn't fake confidence. I drove home slower this time, letting that petty little joy marinate. The sky was overcast, but I swear it looked brighter than usual. When I got back, Amber wasn't there. Probably out celebrating Trent's big win. Good. I needed quiet. I cracked open another beer, sat on the couch, and started flipping through my notebooks. Inside were pages of calculations, sketches, timestamps, all the proof I'd ever need that the core tech was mine. I'd kept backup logs, version histories, even cloud timestamps tied to my personal email. Every detail was airtight. As I looked through it all, something strange happened. I stopped feeling like a victim. I started feeling dangerous. There's a special kind of calm that comes when you realize the people who screwed you over are about to crash without you. They think they've won, but you're the only one holding the safety manual. It's like watching someone steal your car and knowing the engine blows up at 40 miles per hour. By evening, my phone had blown up with messages. Amber again. Dinner tonight. Dad wants to talk. I stared at it for a full minute, then typed, "Tell him to talk to his new genius instead." Sent. Blocked. Freedom never tasted so satisfying. Later that night, as I boxed up the rest of my old work gear, I realized something. Every empire built on lies eventually collapses under its own ego. Brightline Tech was a house of mirrors. All flash, no foundation. And Trent had just set fire to the blueprint. As for me, I was finally out. No more fake family meetings. No more unpaid overtime. No more pretending I was part of something that only saw me as a tool. I poured another drink, raised it to the empty room, and said, "To new beginnings, preferably ones that don't involve in-laws." Outside, thunder rumbled like the universe was toasting back. The next morning would bring phone calls, panic, maybe even a visit. But that night, sitting in my quiet apartment, surrounded by my own work, my real work, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Control. And for once, the only approval I needed came from the man in the reflection of my beer bottle. Tired, betrayed, but finally free enough to smile. Thursday morning, 9:02 a.m. I was halfway through making breakfast, if you can call black coffee and cold pizza a balanced meal, when my phone started buzzing like it owed someone money. I ignored it once, twice. But the third time, it started vibrating off the counter like it had something to confess. I glanced at the screen. Unknown number. Normally, that's a straight-to-voicemail situation. But something in my gut said, "This will be good." I answered with my most uninterested voice. "Yeah, Mason." "Buddy, it's Colin." The voice was frantic, shaky, the kind of tone you hear right before someone asks if you know CPR. I sipped my coffee. Colin, the CFO. The man who once told me to simplify my innovation. Speak because investors don't like big words. How could I forget? He laughed nervously. Right. Haha. Listen, man, we've got a situation. I leaned against the counter. Oh, do tell. Did Trent run out of hair product or metaphors? Colin didn't take the bait. It's the demo, the big investor meeting. It's not working. I pretended to gasp, clutching my imaginary pearls. Not working? You mean the revolutionary concept your golden boy developed all by himself? Look, Mason, he said, his voice cracking like a teenager at prom. We just need a few pointers. Maybe walk us through the build again. I swear it's urgent. The investors are flying in at 11:00. We can't afford another crash. I took a long sip, letting the silence marinate like fine revenge wine. Sounds serious. It is serious, he said. Desperate now. Trent's freaking out, Richard's pacing the conference room, and Amber, well, Amber's trying to do damage control with Claire from the investor group. We need you, man. I couldn't help it. I laughed out loud. Oh, I bet you do. But see, the thing is, Colin, I'm kind of busy right now. My toaster is having a mental breakdown, and someone's got to supervise. Mason, please click. I hung up and grinned so wide, I could have sold toothpaste. You know that deep soul-level satisfaction that comes when karma finally does her job? That was me, standing in my kitchen with yesterday's pizza and a front-row seat to poetic justice. For once, I didn't feel powerless. I didn't feel small. I felt like the guy who left the movie 10 minutes early, knowing exactly how it ends. Still, curiosity is a stubborn friend. I opened my laptop and logged into the Brightline internal news feed. I'd kept my credentials active just in case. Sure enough, there it was. Investor demo postponed due to technical issues. Translation. Trent's masterpiece exploded on launch like a cheap firework. I scrolled through the comments section. Employees gossiping in coded corporate speak. Zara. So, anyone know what happened with the stabilization prototype? Leia. Front desk. Rumor says Trent unplugged something important. Devin Joe. Can confirm. He unplugged Mason. I nearly spit out my coffee. At 9:45, the phone buzzed again. Same number. I let it ring. Then it buzzed again and again. Then Amber's name appeared on the screen. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity won again. Plus, I was dying to hear how she'd spin this. "Hey, sweetheart," I said, dripping with fake cheer. "How's the family empire?" "Mason." "This isn't funny," she snapped. The demo failed completely. The code's broken and the investors are already here. "Oh no," I said, feigning concern. "That must be so stressful, having to rely on stolen work and all," she huffed. "You're being childish." "Probably," I said, "but at least I'm not unemployed and a plagiarist." "Mason," she hissed. "Please, can you just come help? You know this affects me too." Ah, there it was. The me card. Amber could turn global warming into a personal inconvenience. "You mean your brother embarrassed the entire company, and now your name's attached to the fallout?" Her silence said everything. "Amber," I said finally, "I'm flattered. You think I can fix Trent's mess, but I'm all booked up today. Got a lot of not-saving idiots on the schedule." Then I hung up again, gently this time out of respect for the art of satisfaction. For the next hour, I lounged on my couch watching reruns of Shark Tank, sipping my coffee while imagining the chaos over at Brightline. Richard pacing like a zoo lion, Colin sweating through his suit, Amber trying to look composed while Trent probably blamed the air conditioning. I almost felt bad. Almost. By 10:30, the text started pouring in. Zara, Colin, even Jeff, all variations of "please come back." My favorite was from Trent himself. "Bro, we need you, bro." The same guy who erased my name off a 3-year project suddenly remembered we share pronouns. I didn't reply. Instead, I texted Zara privately. "How bad is it?" She replied instantly. "Imagine a dumpster fire. Now add fireworks and a live audience." I laughed so hard I nearly choked. Around 11, I put on some music and went back to my laptop. Not the Brightline stuff, my stuff. The real formula. The one I'd quietly rebuilt under a new name. Iron Core. Cleaner, faster, smarter. I had it documented, patented, time-stamped. No one could touch it. Every line of code, every model refinement, every test result, mine. Theirs was a cheap imitation built on arrogance. My phone buzzed again. Colin, persistent as a telemarketer. I let it go to voicemail, then hit play just for fun. "Mason, buddy, it's Colin again. Look, we're sorry. Okay, maybe we handled things badly, but you've got to understand. The company's on the line here. The investors are threatening to pull funding. Trent's losing it. Please just come by for an hour. I'll make it worth your while. Whatever you want, we'll figure it out." I whistled. Whatever I want. That was rich, coming from a man whose idea of negotiation used to be free parking validation. Still, I'll admit, hearing him panic lit something inside me. Not pity power. The kind of power that comes from knowing your silence is more valuable than their begging. Around noon, I got dressed. Nothing fancy, just jeans and a t-shirt that said, "Not my problem." I walked out to the balcony, phone in hand, and called Colin back. "Mason, thank God I cut him off. Hey, quick question. What's Trent doing right now?" He's rewriting slides. The investors are waiting in the conference room." "Cool," I said. "So, here's what you're going to do. You're going to tell him I said hi, then tell him I said no, and tell Richard to stop calling because every time my phone buzzes, my hourly rate doubles." "Mason, please, Colin," I interrupted. "You had one job. Keep your house clean. Instead, you let a guy with the IQ of wet cardboard hijack my life's work. So now you get to clean up the mess without me. Mason, I'll pay." "Oh, I know you will," I said, smirking. "Just not me. Not anymore." Click. I turned off my phone and stared at the skyline. For the first time in a long time, I felt calm. Not the fake kind you practice in therapy, but the dangerous kind. The kind that comes when the people who wronged you finally realize they can't touch you anymore. My neighbor, an old guy named Ted who smoked cigars and minded everyone's business, yelled from his balcony, "You look too happy for someone on a work call." "Retirement," I said. He laughed. "Good for you, kid." Yeah, retirement. From being everyone's fixer. From being taken for granted. From pretending I owed loyalty to people who'd sell me out for a LinkedIn post. By 2:00 p.m., I'd opened my email. Sitting there like a cherry on top was one from Brightline's HR. Formal notice. Intellectual property rights inquiry. I laughed so hard I nearly fell out of my chair. They actually thought they could threaten me for taking what was already mine. I replied with a single line. Don't worry, I didn't take anything. That's why you can't make it work. Then I attached a smiley face. Professionalism matters. And as I hit send, I realized something. Revenge wasn't always about destruction. Sometimes it was just about timing. The perfect moment when you choose not to save them. Because watching arrogance implode from a distance, that's the kind of therapy money can't buy. Phase 1 of poetic justice was officially complete. 2 hours after I told Colin to Google humility, I was sprawled on my couch, halfway through a rerun of Suits, enjoying the kind of peace only other people's chaos can bring. My coffee had gone cold. My phone was on airplane mode, and I was humming along to the theme song like a man whose enemies were finally paying their karmic bills. Then came the knock. Not a polite, "Excuse me, may I knock?" No. This one sounded like the person on the other side had a personal grudge against wood. 3 rapid, heavy thuds followed by silence, the kind of silence that says, "Open up or I'll start using my forehead." I sighed. If that's another delivery scam, I swear. I opened the door, and there he was. Richard Collins, my father-in-law, CEO of Brightline Tech, destroyer of good moods. Except this time, he didn't look like a man in charge. His perfect hair was slightly out of place. His tie hung loose like it had given up on him, and there was a faint layer of sweat glistening on his forehead. It was like seeing a lion show up at your door wearing a flea collar. "Mason," he said with the calm tone of a man pretending he didn't just spend the morning in corporate hell. "We need to talk." "Do we?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe. "Because last time we talked, you said, and I quote, 'This family doesn't tolerate emotional decisions in business.' Seems like karma heard you." He forced a smile, the kind people wear at funerals. "Look, son, please don't," I said, holding up a hand. "You lost son privileges the moment your actual son stole my project." His jaw twitched. "Fine, Mason. I came here to make things right." I tilted my head. "Is that so? Or did your Golden Boy Science Fair project explode in front of investors?" His silence confirmed it. I stepped aside, gesturing toward the couch. "Come in, but wipe your shoes. Sarcasm isn't the only thing I don't want on my floor." He hesitated, then entered, looking around like the apartment was foreign territory. Which, to be fair, it probably was. He didn't exactly visit the homes of the people who made him rich. I sat opposite him and let him speak first. Always let desperate men dig their own hole. "Mason," he began, smoothing his tie like it might help him find dignity. "The investors? Well, they're considering withdrawing completely. Trent's demo malfunctioned. The system crashed multiple times. The backup presentation failed. Colin nearly fainted. Sounds like a normal Brightline meeting," I said. His eyes narrowed. "We can fix this. You can fix this." Ah, there it was. The compliment, disguised as a command. I leaned back. "You're right. I can. But the better question is, why should I?" "Because," he said quickly, "this company is part of your legacy too. Amber's legacy. Don't you want to protect what you helped build?" I laughed loud. Genuine. The kind that fills the room and makes the other person realize they've lost control of the conversation. "Richard, the only thing I built there was unpaid overtime and trust issues." His composure cracked for a moment. "You're being unreasonable." "Unreasonable?" I repeated. "That's rich coming from a man who let his son plagiarize me in front of a live audience." He sighed heavily. "Mason, we both know Trent made mistakes, but he's still family. And family deserves second chances." "Ah," I said, raising a finger. "But I'm family too, right? Or did that membership expire when I stopped being useful?" He went quiet. Then finally, he said the words I've been waiting for. "What will it take to bring you back?" There it was, the sound of desperation, dressed in diplomacy. I let it sit in the air for a moment. "Name your terms," he said, leaning forward now, voice almost pleading. "Salary, position, recognition, whatever it is, we can make it work." I smiled slowly. "Okay, first term. Trent publicly admits he has the IQ of wet cardboard." His face froze. "Be serious." "I am," I said, "because that's what it'll take to balance the scales. Until then, I'm just watching this corporate car crash from a lawn chair." "Mason," he said, his tone sharpening, "this isn't a joke. People's jobs are on the line. And whose fault is that?" I shot back. I spent years being told to stay in my lane. And now you want me to take the wheel because Trent can't drive without hitting a wall. I stood up. The answer is no, Richard. I'm not coming back to fix a mess I didn't make. I'm building my own company now, Iron Core. And from what I hear, we're already attracting some interest. His face went pale. You can't do that. Watch me, I said, walking to the door and holding it open. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a legacy to build, one that doesn't involve your family. He stood up, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. He walked out without another word, and as I closed the door, I felt a weight lift that I didn't even know I was carrying. 48 hours ago, I was a man losing his job. Now I was a man finding his future. I went back to my desk, opened my laptop, and got to work. Because the best revenge isn't just winning, it's winning on your own terms. Later that week, the news broke. Brightline Tech investors pull funding. Richard Collins resigns amid investigation. Below it, a picture of him stepping into a car, face pale, expression hollow. The man who once told me I'd never understand leadership was now learning humility in real time. I took a sip of my coffee and whispered, "Lesson complete." Then I glanced around the room. The whiteboard, the laptop, the coffee mug that said, "World's Most Stolen Genius." It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about evolution. About taking everything they tried to use against me and turning it into momentum. 48 hours earlier, I'd been a ghost, haunting their failure. Now I was the future they couldn't buy back. And damn, it felt good to be alive. When I finally shut down for the night, I walked out onto the balcony. The city hummed below, indifferent, but full of possibility. Somewhere down there, new people were making the same mistakes, trusting the wrong bosses, letting the wrong people take credit. But somewhere else, a few were learning the same lesson I had. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to find out who you are without them. I raised my mug to the skyline. To the ones who doubted me, I said softly, you built the fire. I built the forge. And as the night breeze hit my face, carrying the sound of distant traffic and possibility, I smiled. Not the bitter smile of a man getting even, but the calm, steady grin of someone who finally won by walking away. Because in the end, revenge wasn't in wrecking their company. It was in building mine.